Hey everyone, welcome to my Adobe Premiere Pro tutorial for beginners. My name is Marino and my goal today is to teach you how to use Premiere Pro. It doesn't matter if you're a student, it doesn't matter if you're somebody who's using DaVinci Resolve, CapCut or any other editing tool and you're just here to broaden your horizons. If you're having trouble understanding my accent, you can enable subtitles. This is what you will learn. We will have 9 lessons and no prior experience is needed. We will begin with the lesson 1, which is interface and setup. You're gonna learn the 5 core panels. I'm gonna teach you how to set up your first project and how to optimize Premiere Pro for your computer. Next, we're gonna import some media and learn how to organize our files. This is a very important step and you will learn why throughout the tutorial. Next up, we have the core editing on the timeline. You will learn how to place clips. I will show you how to cut the clips with the razor tool, how to delete them cleanly, and we will be working with multiple video tracks. In lesson 4, I'm gonna teach you how to use transitions, how to manipulate your clips, speed them up, slow them down, and how to use keyframes. In lesson 5, we will be using video effects, so blur, mosaic, crop, and more others. Lesson 6 will be the audio, so that would be music, voiceover, equalizer, and sound effects. In lesson 7, we will be going over the color correction. We're just gonna do basic corrections, so that would be exposure, highlights, shadows, and so on and so on. In lesson 8, we have the titles and the text. You're gonna learn how to add text to your video, and we're gonna go over the motion graphics. And finally, we will be exporting our final video. By the end of this tutorial, you will have edited, color graded, titled, and exported a complete video from scratch. Now, before we start, I have to give you a big disclaimer. This tutorial was designed as a structured lecture. It was built using the ADDIE instructional design model. It's the same framework used in formal education, which means that each lesson builds on the previous one and has clear learning objectives. Don't just watch, follow along. So open Premiere Pro and do each step as it's shown, because passive watching won't build muscle memory. You can pause, you can rewind, you can repeat, and even speed up the video if necessary. This tutorial was created as part of a final college project on instructional design. Like I said, it follows the ADDIE model of learning, which means your feedback matters. In the description, I'm going to link an anonymous Google Forms survey, which will take about 2 or 3 minutes to complete. It's gonna help me evaluate how effective this tutorial is as a learning resource. No personal data will be collected, and it would be genuinely appreciated if you could do it. Okay, so this is the home screen of Adobe Premiere Pro. What I want you to do is click New Project in the top left. Give your project a name. I'm gonna name mine Tutorial. Next, you're gonna choose where you want to save it. By default, I believe it's in Documents, Adobe Premiere Pro, and then the version of Adobe you're using. But for the sake of this tutorial and to save myself time, I'm gonna pick a custom location. Now, one important thing before we move on. When you create a project in Premiere Pro, it does not copy your video files into the project. It just creates a link to wherever those files are on your computer. What this means is that if you move or delete your original footage, Premiere Pro won't be able to find it. So once you organize your footage folder, just leave the footage there. Okay, now we can proceed. Okay, let me show you something quickly. Open your file browser and navigate to where you saved the project. So in my case, it will be here together with my footage file. This is your Premiere Pro project file. It's only 6 kilobytes because it doesn't actually contain any of your video footage. It contains only your editing decisions. This is really important to understand because it means you cannot just send over that file and expect someone to open your edit. You would need to send them your audio files and your video files together. Okay, now we can go back to Premiere Pro. Let me walk you through the 5 main areas you need to know. So on your bottom left, you have your project panel. This is your media library, so everything we're gonna be importing is gonna be here. Top left, we have the source monitor. This is where you preview individual files before adding them to your edit. Think of it as some kind of a staging area. Now, top right or top middle, you have your program monitor. This shows you what your finished edit looks like as you build it. So the big panel at the bottom is called your timeline. This is where you'll actually edit your video files. And then we have this thin column right here. It's called the tools panel, but we're gonna get into that later. Before we actually import anything, we need to create a sequence. There are 2 ways to do that. The first way is to go to File, New, and then Sequence. And the second way is to press Ctrl and N on your keyboard. So I will do that now. When this window opens up, you will see a lot of presets. For most YouTube videos, you can just leave it like this on 25 FPS. But let's say if you shoot at 30 FPS or 29.97 or maybe even 50, you're gonna pick that. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm gonna leave it on 25. And you can name it down here whatever you want. I'm just gonna name it main edit. And I'm gonna press OK. Now, before we start editing, we want to make sure we're using the right layout. So one way to check that is to go to Window, Workspaces, and it should be on editing. If for some reason something happens, you mess up your panels, you can revert it back by pressing reset to save the layout. Okay, so one small thing. The interface is dark gray by default, which most editors prefer because it's easier on the eyes, but if you prefer a lighter look, you can change it. You're gonna wanna go to Edit, then you press Preferences, and then Appearance. You're gonna have this little slider. You can drag it around, you can play with it, but I'm gonna leave it on dark because that's the way I like it. The last thing I want to show you before moving on is something that many beginner tutorials don't do, and that's optimizing your Premiere Pro so it runs well on your computer. Now I have a high-end PC, maybe you're editing on a laptop, maybe you're editing with an older PC and you see the program lagging, stuttering, so I'm here to fix that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to Edit, we're gonna go to Preferences, and the first setting will be here in the Memory tab. You will see a setting called RAM Reserved for other applications. By default, this is set to a few gigabytes, so you can lower it so that Premiere Pro gets as much RAM as possible. See here, I have 29 gigabytes allocated. You don't need to do it like that. You can, for example, put, I don't know, maybe 20 or something, but this is the way I put it, this is the way I like it, and it works well for me. Okay, so next thing, we're gonna go to Media Cache. This is where Premiere Pro stores temporary files to speed up playback. Things like pick files for audio and optimize previews and stuff like that. And by default, this goes to your system drive. So if you have a second drive, preferably an SSD, you can move the cache there. So I have it saved on my e-disk. And also go down to Media Cache Management and enable the option to automatically delete cache files older than a certain number of days. I set mine to 15. You can set yours to however much you want. Cache files can grow to 2 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes over time without you even realizing it. Now we're gonna go to playback. You have to have this one checked, pause media encoder queue during playback. This tells Premiere Pro to stop generating cache files in the background when you're trying to watch your edits. So all your computer resources go to playback instead of being split. It's gonna make a big difference if you have a slower PC. Final step, and this one is very important, you will go to File, then you're gonna go to Project Settings, General, and under the tab Video Rendering and Playback, you're gonna pick a renderer. Now this is gonna probably be on software only for you, but I advise you to change it to GPU acceleration. Why? Because GPU acceleration offloads video processing from your CPU to your GPU, which is much faster with playback, effects, and exporting. If you only see software, your graphics card may not be supported or the drivers may be outdated. You can check the Adobe website for the list of their supported GPUs. Okay, that's your setup done. So we have the interface, we have the project structure, and now performance optimized. After you're done with this, you're gonna press OK. Now we have our setup done. It's time for us to actually bring some footage in. Okay, now we can start with the lesson 2. Importing our media. There are 3 ways to do this, and I'm gonna show you all 3 of them. So the first one is you're gonna go to File, you're gonna Import, or alternatively, you're gonna press Ctrl and I on your keyboard. Then you click. You're gonna find your footage files and press Import Folder. That's the first way. The second way is to open your file browser, like this, and then you can just drag and drop your footage inside. I'm gonna do it that way. The third method and the last method is through the media browser, which is located right here. This one is important if you're importing footage from a camera, specifically the MXF format and the AVCHD, because those cameras have a whole folder structure that Premiere needs to read correctly. So if you just drag and drop individual files from those folders, things may break. So this one is the safest way for importing camera footage. Here's something useful that most beginners don't notice. In the project panel, you can switch to list view using this icon right here. And here we can see I've downloaded 5 videos, 4 of them having the same resolution, and the 5th one is in 4K format. Also, we can see the frame rate. So this one is 25 FPS, these two are 2997, this one is 2967, and this one is 30 FPS, which means that neither the frame rate nor the resolution match. This is really helpful when you're working with footage from multiple cameras or different settings. You can immediately see if something is in the wrong frame rate or resolution before it causes problems in your edit. For example, if you drop in a TikTok video 9:16 format and you're working in 16:9, you can immediately notice when you've done that. Let's go back to icon view. Now it's time for us to organize our footage. I have already done that, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm gonna do it again. So I'm just gonna remove these videos and this audio file. And I'm going to delete my folders. So how to create a folder? You go down here, press this button, new bin. It's gonna create a folder. You need 2 folders for now called video, and you need one called audio. If you use sound effects, if you use, let's say, graphics or something, you can also create a new folder and call it graphics, but since this is a simple tutorial, I'm not gonna be using that now. What I want you to do is you can hold Control on your keyboard and then just select all your videos and drag and drop them into the folder. Same thing goes with the audio file. Now, I know this feels like extra work, especially on such a small project, but trust me, you need to develop a habit of doing that because it's gonna save you hours later. If you start editing a file that's maybe half an hour long, you're gonna get mixed up a lot. It's advised to do that because professional and intermediate editors and even beginner editors will treat their bin structure as like a sacred ritual. Now let's say I want to start dropping my files onto the timeline so I can edit them. So I'm gonna go to video and we see this. When I try to drag and drop it inside, it says media offline. So why is this happening? This happens when Premiere Pro can't find the original file anymore. I moved mine on purpose just to show you this error. Maybe you moved it, maybe you renamed it, or maybe it's on a different hard drive. This clip is still in your project, but it's broken. To fix it, you have to right click on the offline clip and you need to choose link media. This is the original file path of your video. You need to press locate and then you need to find your file inside. I moved mine on purpose and I'm gonna bring it back. Our clip is now back. This is called relinking media. When it happens, it's not a disaster, it's a fixable problem. But the best way to avoid it is simple. You have to decide where your footage is gonna be before you start editing and don't move it. Now, before we jump into editing, I want to show you one more thing in the project panel that is gonna make your editing workflow much faster. You can double click on any clip. I'm gonna double click this one. It's gonna open in your source monitor. So you can adjust the size if you want, but this is perfectly fine with me. And here's this little playhead. You can move it with your mouse, left and right, but here's a shortcut to keep your hands on the keyboard. This is gonna come in handy. If you press J, the footage moves backwards. To pause it, you press K. To play it forwards, you press L. Now if you want to play it backwards faster, you're just gonna press J key multiple times. If you want to play it faster forwards, you're gonna press the L key multiple times. And K to pause it. Now you're gonna mark the section you actually want to use. So let's say, for example, we want to use it from here. If I want to use it from here, I'm gonna press I on my keyboard and it's gonna mark an in point. This is where your clip starts. To select an out point, let's say here, we're gonna press the O key. This is called non-destructive editing. The original file is completely untouched. You're just telling Premiere which part to use. Once you have your in and out set, you can drag the clip from the source monitor directly onto the timeline, like this. Or alternatively, you can use the comma key, which is your shortcut for insert. Okay, our project is set up, our footage is organized, and now we know how to preview clips. it's time for us to start lesson 3. This is where editing actually happens. Our timeline is our representation of time. So our clips will go from left to right in chronological order. Since we already have a few clips from previous lessons on our timeline, I'm gonna be removing them for now because I want to show you something. So I'm gonna pick this clip with a different resolution than the rest and a different frame rate. So when I drag it with my left click and drop it in the V1 track on the timeline, it's gonna give us this error. So why does this happen? Well, since my sequence settings are set to 25 FPS and my resolution is set to 1920 by 1080, it's gonna give us a clip mismatch warning. Now I'm gonna leave this on always ask, but I'm gonna keep my existing settings. But when I do that, our clip is zoomed in. So how to fix this? I'm gonna go and click on my clip on the timeline, and I'm gonna go top left and press Effect Controls. Now we're gonna see a few settings, but this scale setting is the one we're gonna be using. Since the clip is in 4K, we need to drop the scale down by half. So in our case, it's gonna be 50. And this is now fixed. All of the clips I have downloaded have no audio on them. Yours are probably gonna have audio. So in order to show you what to do, I'm gonna be importing an unrelated video on my PC, which is a gaming video, but it's just gonna stay here for this part of the lesson. Here is our clip. When I drag and drop it onto the timeline, you'll see the video on V1 track and its audio linked below on A1. By default, they move together. You can also press right click on the clip, insert, or the comma key, as I showed you in the previous lesson, which pushes everything to the right to make room. If we move our playhead in the beginning of this clip, and we select our clip, right click, and either press overwrite or the period key, it's gonna replace everything in the position of the playhead. When building from scratch, the best way is to either use insert or just drag and drop your clip. Overwrite is only useful when you want to replace a specific section. The thing I want to show you with this clip is how to separate audio and video. So you have to have your clip selected like this, then you press right click and find unlink. Now you can move the video and the audio separately. Now I'm gonna remove this gaming video, just gonna select it, I'm gonna press delete, and I'm also gonna press delete here. Now let's focus on our clip. Currently our timeline is pretty zoomed out. There are more ways to adjust it. The first way is to press plus or minus on your keyboard. Since I don't have a plus or a minus on my keyboard, I do it manually by holding this scroll bar and pushing my mouse to the left. Press V for selection tool. I already have it selected, it's this little arrow here. Now we click to select our clip and we want to trim it by 2 seconds. I'm gonna select the edge of the clip until this little red cursor appears, and I'm gonna hold my left click and drag it to the right for, let's say, exactly 2 seconds. But now we have a gap here. In order to remove this gap, we can press left click, then right click and ripple delete, or use a shortcut. You press here and then you click shift and delete. You always want to use this option because it closes the gap automatically. Regular delete will just leave a hole in your timeline. Now let's get to the fun part, cutting our clips. To cut our clip, you're gonna press C on your keyboard and it's gonna bring up the razor tool, or you can also select it here. So let's say I want to cut it at this point. I'm gonna press left click here and we have cut our clip. Now we can delete the extra, but there's also one more shortcut. So I'm gonna go Control Z and I can show you this. So if you wanna bring back the extra piece you cut, you're just gonna right click the gap and you're gonna click join through edits, and our clip is full again. So in order to use our shortcut, you're gonna press Ctrl K, but you have to select the part you wanna cut with your playhead. So let's say if I wanna cut it again, I need to move my playhead with my mouse here and press Ctrl K, and now it automatically cuts. I can delete the extra part. There are also 2 more shortcuts. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag this clip in And let's say I want to cut the first second and a half. I'm gonna select my clip, and to cut the beginning, I'm gonna press Q. So now you see the clip automatically cut itself. And let's say I wanna remove the last few seconds. I'm gonna move my playback to here, and I'm gonna press W on my keyboard. And now it cut the last second or two. See this magnet icon on the top of our timeline? That's our snapping tool. You can press on it to toggle it off, or press the S key on your keyboard. When it's on, our clips will snap onto each other and to the playhead, so you can never accidentally leave gaps. So let me show you. When I try to move this clip here, it's gonna snap to the playhead. And when I try to move it back, it's gonna snap to our first clip. But if I turn it off, it no longer snaps, and you can also overwrite the original file. I advise that you leave it on for normal editing, and to turn it off when you need precise frame level adjustments. One more thing on tracks. So the V1, V2, or A1, A2, they all stack on top of each other visually. Higher tracks will have higher visual priority. If you want your title or graphic on top of your footage, you're gonna put it on V2. So if I move this first clip and put it onto V2 here, it has a higher visual priority than the track on V1. But for now, we're gonna keep our footage on our video track 1. Now you're ready for the first practice task. I want you to build a sequence of at least 5 clips, 30 to 60 seconds total, like I have. You can use the same clips I used, I'm gonna link them in the description, but you can also use your own custom clips. Cut and trim them to your liking. I want you to get comfortable here before we move on. I have cut, I have rearranged my clips, hopefully you've been as successful as I have, and now we're ready to move on lesson 4. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna navigate to workspaces, I'm gonna click on it, and here we have many workspaces, but the one we're gonna be focusing on now is the effects one. So go down here and click effects. Your windows might look different than mine, but the important thing is to find the effects tab. Now when you click on it, it's gonna give you multiple options. Here are custom presets that you can import, but the one I want is called video transitions. Click on video transitions and then click on dissolve. You'll see several options here. Let me show you the most useful ones. Cross dissolve is the industry standard. It blends smoothly between 2 clips and it shows a gentle scene change. Drag it and place it in between 2 clips like this. You'll see it appear as a small block on the timeline. When you click on it, you'll get this little effect control tab. You can change the duration here and you can change the alignment. I usually leave this on center at cut. The duration is purely your choice. So let's play it to see how it looks. If you're not happy with the duration, you can change it up here by dragging it to the right or to the left, or go to your timeline and you can drag it to the left to shorten it and to the right to lengthen it. Next useful one, which I use a lot, is called film dissolve. Now these two are practically the same, but film dissolve looks slightly more filmic. For most purposes, cross dissolve and film dissolve are both interchangeable. Now the next one I'm gonna show you is called dip to black. You can only use it at the very beginning or the very end of your video. So I'm gonna drag it here, gonna move my playhead here, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. There is also dip to white. It does the same thing, but instead of black, it dips to white. When using many different transitions, you need to be careful not to overuse them. If you add transitions just for the sake of adding them, it might not look the way you want it to look. It might look too flashy or something. So if you want to keep it simple, there's a shortcut that applies cross dissolve to all of your clips. So the way to do it is to first remove these transitions, select all my clips and press Shift+D. You might see a warning that says insufficient media. This transition will contain repeated frames. This happens because the transition needs extra frames on both sides of the cut to blend. Frames that won't exist if you have trimmed the clip all the way to the edge of your original footage. Now you're gonna press OK, and you'll see most of the clips have normal transitions, But this one isn't normal, it has crossed out lines, and we didn't get a transition here. The fix for this is the slip tool. You can press Y on your keyboard to activate it, or go down here and press slip tool. Click and drag on the clip that's causing the problem. You need to either drag it left or right. I'm gonna select this clip and I'm gonna drag it to the right. So now, when we click on selection tool, we see that we fixed the transition for the first clip. Now we're gonna use the slip tool on the other clip and we're gonna drag it to the left. As you can see, when we click on the transition, it works as intended. But we still haven't fixed this one. So let's put cross dissolve in manually. When I try to apply the transition, it only works at the end of the clip. So when we click on it, and when we manually try to adjust it, we're gonna see that we're still missing frames here. So we're gonna use the slip tool here, drag our clip to the right, and now our clips are fixed. When you use the slip tool, it's not moving the clip on the timeline and you're not changing its length. You're just sliding the window of which frames from the original footage are being used, which frees up those extra frames the transition needs. Once you've slipped the clip enough to give the transition some room, the error goes away and the transition applies cleanly. If you've trimmed so aggressively that there genuinely aren't any extra frames available, meaning that you used every single frame of that clip, then you'll either need to shorten the transition duration or trim the clip slightly shorter on the timeline to create overlap room. There is one transition worth knowing for interview footage. Now, because we don't have any interview footage, it's not gonna be useful to us, but I'm still gonna show it to you in case you're editing an interview. So let's remove this transition here. And in its place, we're gonna add morph cut. If you cut out a section of someone speaking and the jump looks bad, you can drag morph cut onto that cut. Premiere Pro will analyze the frames on both sides and it's gonna try to create a seamless blend between them. It's not magic, as you can see with our clip here. It works better on some shots than the others. I'm just gonna play it for you to see what it looks like. It's not seamless, but it can save cuts that would otherwise be unusable. When we used morph cut, this little red line appeared. This red line indicates that our effect or our transition wasn't properly rendered. So in order to render it properly, we're gonna drag our playhead at the beginning of the clip. We're gonna press I for in and drag the playhead on the end of the transition and press O. Now we're gonna go here to sequence and we're gonna press render effects into out. And now when the line is green, it means that it's properly rendered. But like I said, since we're not gonna use morph cut, I'm gonna remove it. And to clear the in and out point, you're gonna press right click here and you're gonna press clear in and out. Let's talk about the speed of our clips. You can right click any clip on the timeline. I'll pick this one and you can choose speed and duration. You will see a percentage. 100% means that the clip is playing in normal speed. If you want to use slow motion, you're gonna type in 50% or maybe 25%, and as you can see, you will see the duration of the clip here. If you want to fast forward the clip, you're gonna type in 200 and it's gonna play at double speed. If you want your clip to play backwards, you're gonna click on reverse speed. And if the clip has audio, which mine doesn't, you can check maintain audio pitch. Otherwise your voice will be pitched either low or high, depending if you use slow motion or fast forwarding. Press OK. One thing to keep in mind. If you slow down your footage that wasn't shot at a high frame rate, for example, it was shot at 25 FPS, it's gonna look choppy. Smooth slow motion requires footage shot at least 60 FPS or higher. If it was shot at 25 FPS and you slow it down to 50%, Premiere Pro has to invent those frames and the result won't look good. There is a faster way to change clip speed and it's called the rate stretch tool. You can press R on your keyboard to activate it, or you can choose it here. Now you're gonna drag the right edge of a clip on the timeline. But it's not gonna work. This tool is used for fitting clips into a specific duration. Currently we're not able to do that because we have transitions, so I'm gonna move them for now. Now let's say I want to stretch my video to 30 seconds. I'm gonna press left click and I'm gonna drag it to around 30 seconds. Now my clip is slowed down to 48%. It's a simple tool to adjust your clip to your desired length. Moving on, I created a new sequence set at 60 FPS to show you time remapping. Time remapping is used for more creative speed changes. So if we want our clip to start normal, then ramp into slow motion, then speed back up, we're gonna use time remapping. First, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna zoom in on the clip, just like this, and I'm gonna expand our timeline just a little bit, like this. Right click our clip, show clip keyframes, time remapping, and speed. You know you did it right when you see this white line appear. Now next, we'll want to add our beginning keyframe. You see a red pedestrian light. I want to add my keyframe when it turns green. So, right here. I'm gonna control and left click here. And this is how I created the first keyframe. Now, what is a keyframe? A keyframe is actually a marker that saves the value of a setting at a specific point in time, which means you will need at least two markers, one where the change starts and one where it ends. You can set keyframes the way I did, or using the source monitor. You can drag the playhead and then you can click on here, add or remove keyframe. This is what I personally use, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm gonna be using this line on the timeline. Now let's remove this one for now. And say we wanna slow down when they start crossing the road, but just a bit. So I'm gonna control and left click here. Let's zoom in again. And to slow our pedestrians down, we're gonna drag this white line like this. We're gonna drag it down to 50%. Maybe, yeah, no, let's drag it down to 40%. Now, when we play the clip, we're gonna see that they started moving slow. You can also click the keyframe handle, or as I like to call them, the wings. Let's zoom in again, sorry. And let's drag this left wing like this. Let's open up the keyframe. And we get this little line. When we click inside the keyframe, we'll get this handle. When we drag the handle to the left or to the right, I'm gonna drag it to the left. As you can see, it creates a smooth ramp, but I didn't do it right. Wait. Let's put it like this. It creates a smooth ramp. It's gonna be hard to showcase, but it's gonna create a smooth ramp instead of an abrupt speed change. I tweaked it a bit and added it to the other side, so now it looks like this. You see it's more noticeable here. And yeah, that's basically cinematic slow motion ramp effect. I want to show you one more thing before we end this lesson, and it's called a speed ramp. We're gonna go back to our first sequence. Now that we're back on the original sequence, I can show you the speed ramp. We will select the first clip again, right click, show clip keyframes, remapping speed. We're gonna do the same thing for the other one. Again, expand the timeline a bit. Now we want to go to almost the end of our clip. I'm gonna go right here and again press Ctrl click here and then try to match it on the other side as well. I'm gonna do it like this. And now we want to increase the speed by 300% on both sides. So I'm gonna do just that. Now we'll zoom in again and go here to the wing of the keyframe and drag it to the left a bit. Do the same thing for the other side, just to the right. And again, mess around with the slope, with the handlebar. When we delete the space in between, we should get a smooth speed ramp. If not, we can always adjust it. Let's see how it looks. You can mess around with it. It's a cool little trick. Let me show it again. And with this, we're ready to move on to lesson 5. In lesson 5, we will be focusing on the effects in Premiere Pro. You've already seen the effects panel for transitions. It's this one. But it also contains audio effects and video effects. These are filters and tools you apply directly onto clips to change how they look. When you open video effects, you will see a dozen of categories, more than a dozen. When you apply a certain effect, let's put invert on a random clip, you can change its parameters in the effect controls. However, you might accidentally close this window down and you're out of the effect controls. You don't know how to get back. Well, it's pretty simple. You go over to window and you can press effect controls here, and also every single window you close, you can open it up in here. So let's bring it back. And of course you can adjust this the way you want it to. I usually put my effect controls first. So here we go, like this. But I'm gonna remove this effect. To remove the effect, you can go down to invert, press left click, right click, and then clear the effect. The first effect I'll be showcasing is called Gaussian blur. In order to find it, you can either type down Gaussian blur, it's right here, or you can find it under video effects, blur and sharpen, and you can find it with other blurs. But let's apply the Gaussian blur. We'll apply it to this video here. At first nothing happens. That's because we haven't changed the blurriness scale of it yet. The blurriness scale, of course, indicates how blurry the video will be. Let's put it to 2. Nothing happens. Let's put it to 10. Something happens. Let's just drag it to the right to show you. This is at 100, 200, 300. You can adjust it to your liking, but of course you can always use a mask. Now a mask is kind of self-explanatory. When we create an ellipse mask, it's gonna give us this ellipse. Let's say we want to blur out these people here. Of course, in order to properly blur them, we need to adjust our keyframes, because when I move my playback to the left, you see they will phase out of the circle. But let's keep it simple for now. Let's show you what it does. So now we can put the blurriness to, let's say, 25, and you'll see that everything inside of the circle is blurred to 25. However, if we want to blur everything around the people, we have to press inverted mask expansion, like so. You can also interact with this circle. So instead of pressing here, you can press on the square, and when you drag it, you see it unblurs a bigger radius. But when we drag this circle, it gradually blurs. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. I'm just showcasing it. It's fun. It's a fun little effect to do. So yeah, this is Gaussian blur. Instead of Gaussian blur, you can use the camera blur. They look almost identical to me. I know there's some kind of a difference between them. I'm not so sure. I usually always use Gaussian blur, but see, this is in percentages. It looks like this. It creates kind of a blurry lens effect, so that's why it's called a camera blur. Then we have the directional blur. This one, of course, blurs at an angle. I'm gonna set my angle to 45 degrees and length to 10. Now, as you can see, it creates kind of a shaky effect. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. You can see how it blurs in a direction. When we change the direction, it blurs 90 degrees. We can change it to 120. You can experiment, of course. This lesson is just to showcase the effects. Of course, I cannot tell you what to do. It's all up to you, to your own personal preference. Just be careful not to over-exaggerate the same way like you would with transitions. So after blurs comes the complete opposite. It's called sharpen. When you drag it here, and let's say we set it to 50, it's going to increase edge contrast to make footage look crispier. It's useful if your footage looks slightly soft out of the camera, but just don't push it too far, because when it's at 50, you can see, let me zoom in, it doesn't look so good. So this is at 0, this is at 50, 100, let's say maybe we put it to 10, or just let's drag it a bit just to show you how it changes gradually. When you drag effects, as you can see it, when I move my mouse slightly to the right, it goes up a lot. In order to decrease that, let's put it to 0 and press Ctrl and then hold right click. it's gonna go way slower and you can fine-tune it. Or of course you can always type it in. Next effect I want to show you is called Mosaic. You can search it up here. Or alternatively you can find it under Video Effects and Stylize. So when I drag and drop it in, you're gonna see another, I would call it a form of blur. The classic way, the old way. It's used to hide faces, number plates, or anything you need to obscure. When we drag it onto the clip, we can adjust its horizontal and vertical blocks. The more we add, the more you will actually see in the image. So if I add 200 by 200, you will be able to make out what's going on in the image. But if I do 50 and then 50 again, it's pretty hard to notice. The best way to use it is to apply it to only the part of the frame. So once again, if you choose the mask, and if you only want to hide these two people, you can do it the same way we did with Gaussian blur. It's the same principle. Next up in the distort folder, we have an effect called lens distortion. This effect lets you add or correct optical distortion. The curvature slider is the main one. If you want a fisheye barrel distortion, you'll push the slider to the left, like this. When you adjust it properly, it's gonna look a lot like GoPro footage. You can also push it in the positive direction and it pushes the image inward. Unfortunately, this does put your shot out of the frame, so you will need to either scale it, like so, but it doesn't look that good to me. And I rarely use this effect, and even if I do, I use the negative curvature. There's also vertical decentering, horizontal decentering, you have the prism FX. Like I said 2 or 3 times, you can play with it, have fun with it, it's up to you. For our next effect, we're gonna go over to color correction and we're gonna choose brightness and contrast, drag that in. And you have these two sliders for brightness and contrast. This is a simple one-click tonal adjustment. Though for proper color work, we're gonna use Lumetri color, but that's only in lesson 7. This effect is useful for quick fixes when you don't need precision. And for our next effect, we're gonna go over to transform, and we're gonna use crop. Crop lets you cut into the frame of a clip without actually changing the sequence. You can drag the left, right, top or bottom sliders to crop. This is useful for repositioning a clip compositionally, for adding cinematic effect. For example, if we increase the top to 10% and the bottom to 10%, we can also keyframe it. So let's say it starts here at 0 and the bottom starts at 0. Move over a bit. Now we put on 10%, 10%. And when we play it back, you can see how crop works. So that about covers the core effects you'll use the most. However, I want you to experiment. You can always open each folder, for example, noise and grain. You can drag on noise. You'll see a new slider called amount of noise. When we put it to 50%, it creates noise on the image. It really is up to you, same as transitions, but there is one more effect I want to show, and I want to introduce you to adjustment layers. So we gotta go back to editing. Now in the project panel, we're gonna go here, we're gonna press new item and then adjustment layer. You need to set your adjustment layer to the same resolution and frame rate that you're using on the project. So I'm gonna press OK. And as you can see, we created an adjustment layer, which we're gonna drag onto the clip. Let's automatically cut it so it fits perfectly on the clip. But what does an adjustment layer do? It allows us to apply effects such as color grading or transformations to multiple clips simultaneously. In order for it to properly work, it needs to be placed on a video track above our footage, and it's going to affect all layers beneath the adjustment layer. There is one specific effect I want to show you, which I'm going to apply to the adjustment layer, and we're gonna go over back to effects. Before we drag on the effect, we're gonna move the adjustment layer to the first video. So which effect are we looking for? We're gonna go over to distort and we're gonna drag transform onto our adjustment layer. For now, we're gonna crop it to the length of the clip. As you can see, we have multiple options here in the effect controls, but the ones we're gonna be focusing on are position and scale. I wanna do a nice and simple zoom in and zoom out effect. To start the zoom in, we need to find where we want to begin the zoom. So let's start it at here somewhere. We need to keyframe our position and we need to keyframe our scale. This is the beginning of the zoom. and we need to find where we want our zoom in to end. So let's say, for example, here. And then we need to change the value of the scale. So how much do we want it to zoom in? We're gonna keep it simple and subtle. So I'm gonna go to 120, let's say 130. And let's move the position a bit to the left, like this. And we have our zoom in. Of course, this looks a bit choppy, maybe even a bit too fast. So let's select both our keyframes and move them a bit to the left. Now, if we want a smooth, nice zoom in, we need to select the first two keyframes, press right click, temporal interpolation, and then ease in. We need to do the same thing for the endpoints, but instead of ease in, we're gonna pick ease out. Now, when we play it, it's a bit smoother. In order for us to zoom out the video, we need to add a third keyframe, which is gonna be the starting point of our zoom out. Let's add it here with the same parameters as the second keyframe or the out point for the zoom in. Now we need to choose the out point for the zoom out. We're gonna try and match the length of the zoom in, and we're gonna place it here. We could manually adjust the position and scale back to 100 and position back to 960, but there is an easier way. So let's delete the two keyframes, and instead of doing that, we can press reset parameter for the position and for the scale, and it's gonna bring us back to the default setting. Of course, we select the third keyframes, temporal interpolation, ease in, and the same thing to ease out. Now when we play it, we have a nice zoom in and zoom out effect. Of course, you could add the effect directly onto the clip, but it's safer to use an adjustment layer, especially if you're working with multiple clips. This concludes our lesson 5. Your task for both lesson 4 and lesson 5. Apply at least 2 transitions we covered today and 2 you find on your own in the effects panel. Adjust the duration of each one and see how the feel changes. Then try to build a speed ramp on at least one clip using time remapping, as I showed you. Next, I want you to apply a different effect to each of your clips in your sequence. Whether you have 3 clips or 5 clips or 7, apply an effect to every single one of them. Then pick one clip and stack 2 effects on it, just to see how they react. If you can, find 2 effects that complement each other, and you might get something unique. There are no wrong answers, just explore. In lesson 6, we will be covering audio, music, voiceover, equalizer, and sound effects. Our footage clips don't have any audio on them, so everything we hear in the final video will be what we add ourselves. Let's start with the background music. Go over to the project panel, drag your music track from the project panel down to A2, audio track 2. Position it at the very start of your sequence and stretch it across the full length of your edit. If the music file is longer than your edit, we're gonna cut at the end and delete the rest of the audio. Now, how to set the right volume level. When we play it, it's gonna be very loud. The best way to do it is to choose your clip, and here we have some options. We can assign the audio types to our clip. So if we pick music, we're gonna get this big window of options. The one we want is called loudness. We're gonna click auto match. And as you can see, it's matched to -25 lufs, which is YouTube's loudness standard. You can also choose a preset. For example, if you want it to be balanced background music, you can pick that. Before we play it, we're gonna expand this a bit, just to show you the difference. As you can see, it peaks around -12 or -9. But if it's still too loud, we can go over here on the clip, press right click, go to audio gain, and we can adjust the gain by, let's say, another -10. When we now play it, it peaks at -24. Now we're gonna add a fade in and fade out effect using keyframes so the music doesn't abruptly cut in and cut out. So let's expand our timeline, zoom in into the timeline. Let's say we're gonna fade in the first 2 seconds. Control click to add a keyframe, and we need to put a keyframe at the beginning of the clip. So when we drag it down, we need to drag it to, let's say, like almost at the bottom. So when we play it, we get a nice little fade in for our music. And let's do the same thing at the end. So let's add the end keyframe and put another one around 2 seconds before the end, right about here. Drag it down to almost at the bottom. Of course, you can always add extra keyframes in to adjust it even more, to give it a bit of a gradual pass, like this. But it's completely up to you. Of course, if you don't want to, you don't need to do that manually. So let's delete our keyframes here and go over to the Effects tab. Now under the Effects tab, we're gonna go over to Audio Transitions, Crossfade. Now when we play it back, it also has a nice fade in and a nice fade out. The reason why we don't use constant gain is because constant gain is used for abrupt cuts. Now I want to show you something really useful. Recording a voiceover directly inside Premiere Pro without any external recording software. But in order for us to start, we first need to mute our track. One way to do that is to go over to Audio 2 and press M or Mute Track. When we play it back, as you can see, there is no sound, which is perfect for us because it won't get in the way of our recording. Second step, we need to make sure Premiere Pro knows which microphone to use. So go over to Edit, then Preferences, Audio Hardware, and as you can see, I have no input here, so it's a good thing we checked. When I press no input, it's gonna ask me which input I want. I can pick either system default or microphone. I'm gonna play it safe and go with the microphone. You will get this warning: device changes can modify channel mappings, input assignments, affect playback. You're just gonna press on yes. Now click OK. Now look at your audio tracks in the timeline. We need to drag it up to audio 1 because that's gonna be the track we're gonna be recording our voiceover on. In order for us to start recording, we're gonna drag our playback to where we want our voiceover to start. So that's gonna be at the beginning of the video. And we need to press on this icon, voiceover record. Now some of you might want your audio to play back into your headphones so you can hear yourself talking, but it's something that distracts me. In order to change that, we need to go over to Edit, Preferences, Audio, and we need to check Mute Input during timeline recording. I'm gonna press that and I'm gonna click OK. Now I'm ready to start recording. Since my clips are all in Japan, I'm going to read a fun fact about Japan. You can say pretty much anything. This is just a test to show you how the voiceover feature works. So let's click on voiceover record. A countdown starts. Japan is an archipelago of over 6,800 islands in East Asia, known for blending ancient traditions with futuristic technology. When we're done, we just press spacebar and Premiere Pro will record directly onto that track in real time. You will see the recorded clip appear on A1 right where you spoke. It's just a normal audio clip now. You can trim it, you can move it, you can apply effects to it, exactly like any other clip. This is great if you want to add narration or commentary or instructions to your video without ever leaving Premiere. Now that we have our voiceover recorded, let's play it to hear what it sounds like. Japan is an archipelago of over 6,800 islands in East Asia. As you can see, it's loud, it has no effects added on it. That's because we recorded a raw audio from our microphone. We need to fix that immediately. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to Workspaces, then I'm gonna press on Audio. At first, it might look complicated, but don't worry, I'm gonna show you the features that you're gonna use. Let's start by selecting our audio clip. There are two ways to edit our audio. The first way is to use the Essential Sound panel. We have 4 audio types to start with: dialogue, music, sound effects, and ambience. Since this is a voiceover, I'm gonna click on dialogue. You're gonna be greeted by many effects, but one effect I always use is called loudness. So I'm gonna click on Auto Match. Auto Match will be the only effect I'm gonna be using here, because we're gonna move on to the audio track mixer. Now, at first it seems like we can't do much here, but when we click on this arrow, you can see we can add effects to our tracks. Since my voiceover is on audio track 1, I'm gonna add my effects to audio track 1. I already have my effects pre-added, and I'm gonna go over through these 5 effects I always use. First up, we have denoise. You can find it by selecting effect selection here, this little arrow. Go to noise reduction and restoration, and you click on denoise. When you select your effect, you're gonna double click it, and this little window will open up. It's called the Track FX Editor. You can copy my settings, but I advise you mess around with features because your voice and my voice won't be the same. What I did is I applied the light noise reduction preset. I set my processing focus to target low frequencies, and I set my amount to 10%. Denoise is actually the same as reduce noise, and when it's set at 10%, it means that it's at 1.0. 10% for me is the optimal spot. Maybe you can go to 15 and 20, but try not to overuse it. My effects are currently disabled, and we can enable them by going over to the top left and clicking on this little switch icon. When I switch it on, it turns on the effect. I'm gonna close the denoise, and we're gonna go over to de-reverb. We're gonna find it again, clicking this little arrow, going to noise reduction and restoration, and de-reverb. Double clicking on it. As you can see, I did the same thing. I used the light reverb reduction preset. I targeted low frequencies and I put it to 10%. I'm gonna enable this one. And we are ready to move on to the parametric equalizer. We can find it under filter and EQ and selecting parametric equalizer. Double click on it. Parametric equalizer is a precision equalizer that lets you boost or cut specific frequency ranges. Unlike a basic equalizer, it gives you control over frequency, gain, and bandwidth. I used the vocal enhancers preset and modified it just a tiny bit. This one matches my voice, and you're gonna have to adjust it to your voice manually. Of course, if you don't have any experience with audio, you can just choose any of these presets, but I recommend the vocal enhancer since you are recording a voiceover. I'm gonna enable it and move on to the tube modeled compressor. To find it, go to the amplitude and compression tab and choose tube model compressor. This compressor reduces the dynamic range, which means it brings loud parts down and quiet parts up, so the audio sits more consistently in the mix. The reason I'm using the tube modeled compressor instead of the single band or multi-band compressor is because this compressor is popular for voiceovers. The only thing I did here is chose my preset. So it usually sits on default, and I picked voiceover. You can experiment with any of these, but voiceover sounds good to me. I'm gonna enable it and move on to the final effect I'm using. It's called de-esser. You can also find it here in this tab. So we're gonna select it, go over to amplitude and compression and pick de-esser. Double click on it. De-esser targets and reduces sibilance, which means it targets the harsh S sounds. That's why it's called the de-esser, and it especially helps with sensitive microphones like I have. The only thing I changed here is I only chose the preset, so the low voice de-esser. So I'm gonna enable the final effect. Now when I close this down and play my audio from the beginning, Japan is an archipelago of over 6,800 islands in East Asia, known for blending ancient traditions with futuristic technology. It's a major difference. The only thing holding the audio back is the actual quality of your microphone. But when it comes to audio, there are always other effects you could use. There isn't a single standard effect. The effects you choose aren't set in stone, which means you have to experiment and find effects that fit you and your voice. Of course, if this looks and sounds too complicated, you could always use the repair features here, and you also have the equalizer, vocal enhancer, and some creative options as well. But for now, let's unmute our audio track 2, on which we have our background music, and go over to ducking. This is where the music automatically gets quieter when the voiceover is speaking, then comes back up when it stops. It's a good way to polish your video. When we check the box, you will see some features here. Most of the time, you can just use the default settings and it's gonna work. The important thing is, if you want your background music to be quiet during the voiceover part, you need to click on Duck Against Dialog, which is set to default. Personally, I only change the duck amount, so it's at -18 now. I like to keep it at -21. When I press enter, I need to generate my keyframes, so I'm gonna click on that. As you can see in our timeline, it generated 2 keyframes, which made a smooth fade in and fade out transition. So now when we play our video, Japan is an archipelago of over 6,800 islands in East Asia, known for blending ancient traditions with futuristic technology. This sounds pretty good now. Our music dips under the voice and then rises back up. Of course, if you want to change your fade in and fade out speed, you can do that here in the fade duration. We can make it faster, we can make it slower. When you're happy with the settings you chose, you have to click generate keyframes again. And now when we play the fade out, technology. As you can hear, it gradually goes back up. Now it's time to add some sound effects to the video. Sound effects are optional, but they add real polish. You can download free sound effects from a site like Pixabay or Freesound, or you can find it on YouTube, but unfortunately, most good sound effects are behind a paywall. Those would be sites like Envato Elements and Epidemic Sound. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go over to the project tutorial, and you're gonna import your sound effects. As you can see, I've already imported 4 sound effects, but the import process is the same like when you imported video and audio. The first sound effect I'm gonna add is here on the speed ramp transition. I'm gonna mute my audio track for voiceover and I'm gonna mute my audio track for music, just so we can highlight the sound effects. So let's put our whoosh sound effect here. I'm gonna place it in audio track 3. Now, in order for us to be able to manually adjust the sound effect to our liking, I'm going to disable the snap-on feature. And I'm going to expand this, or I should say zoom in. And let's play the sound effect. As you can see, the timing is not perfect. We will need to adjust that. And also, I think it's a bit too loud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tag it as a sound effect. And I'm gonna adjust the clip volume level to, let's say, around -10. Now, let's play it and let's enable my voice and the music track. Archipelago of over 6,800 islands in East Asia. Let's adjust the sound effect to get the timing right. I'm gonna move it a bit to the right. Let's play it again. Over 6,800 islands in East. Let's again mute our audio tracks, audio track 2, audio track 1, and let's add some ambience noise to this clip right here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna choose this ambience clip, I'm gonna drag it here, but I'm gonna move this sound effect to audio track 4. I could either drag it down, or I can select the clip, hold Alt on my keyboard, and press the down arrow. Let's expand this a little bit just so we can fit the audio tracks all together. And let's trim it or cut it to match the length of the clip. So like this. And of course, we're gonna tag this as sound effects. And we can drop the clip volume by, again, -10. Okay, let's play it now. But before we do that, I'm gonna expand this a bit. And I still want to add an ambience sound effect to this clip. So I'm gonna drag this down. Again, we repeat the same thing, sound effects, level, -10. And we bring this one to audio track 5. Now when we play it all together, I want this one to start a little bit later. So I'm gonna trim the beginning and I'm gonna drag it like this. So let's play it now. This isn't perfect, it needs adjustments to work, especially when you use sound effects and music and voiceover together. But of course, sound effects should be more felt than heard. If someone notices them, they are probably too loud. This is gonna be fine for now. Let's unmute both of our audio tracks. Let's add a transition here to end the video. We're gonna make it like this, and let's add a transition to the final sound effect. Now let's play it from the beginning to see what we have. Japan is an archipelago of over 6,800 islands in East Asia, known for blending ancient traditions with futuristic technology. I'm gonna do some more fine-tuning on my transitions, effects, and audio effects, and I'm going to show you my final product. Once we're happy with the result, we can play the video. But before that, I'm gonna make an out point, and I'm gonna go to Sequence, Render Effects into Out, just so our effects and transitions play smooth in the playback. Japan is an archipelago of over 6,800 islands in East Asia, known for blending ancient traditions with futuristic technology. Of course, there's plenty more to be added. It all depends on what clips you chose, what effects you chose, what sound effects you chose. But by now, you should already have a complete video ready for export. However, we have 2 more lessons left, and in the next lesson we will be covering color correction. In lesson 7, we will quickly go over the Lumetri color and the basic color correction. Color correction is what separates footage that looks like it was shot on a phone from footage that looks shot on a camera. It looks highly professional, it's not bland, it's vibrant. In Premiere Pro, this is all done in the Lumetri color panel. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go over to Workspaces and go to Color. We're gonna select the first clip on the timeline and we're gonna expand the Basic Correction tab. We're gonna start with Temperature Slider. Temperature slider moves between cool tones on the left. As you can see, when I move it to the left, it creates a cooler blue tone, and when we move it to the right, it goes orange, giving us a nice warm orange tone. So let's set it maybe at 17.3. This is okay. This is how it looks with the change. This is what it looks without. It's subtle, but it's noticeable. Next up, we have the tint. The tint covers the green and magenta axes. I usually leave it at 0. This is what it looks when it's pink. This is what it looks when you mess with the green tint. It looks okay, but you can see the sky turns green, and that's not something I personally want in my footage. I'm gonna leave that at 0. Next up, we have the saturation. When you move it down, it goes almost black and white. When you move it up, you have nice saturated colors. This is all personal preference. I'm gonna set mine above 100, something like 120. And let's see what we did. This is with the basic correction. When we turn it off, you can see it looks a bit more raw and bland. When we turn it back on, it gives it a nice warm color. Next up, we have the light controls or the tonal controls. Exposure will be your overall brightness when you turn it up. As you can see, you have to be careful not to overdo it. As you can see, this looks very, very exposed. I usually wouldn't go over 0.5. In this case, I wouldn't even touch it, so I would leave it at 0. And this is what it looks like when you go in the negatives. As you can see, it goes dark. Let's just set it back to 0. This looks okay. Contrast is self-explanatory. Let's leave it for now at 0. We have the highlight controls. This is at 100, this is at a -100. Since highlights controls bright areas, you need to pull it down to recover blown out skies or windows, but in our case the sky looks very nice. It doesn't need any corrections. And the shadow slider does the opposite thing. It controls dark areas. So for example, when we turn it up, you can see the dark areas fading. And when we pull it down, as you can see, the shadows stand out more. Let's leave it at 0. The white slider sets the brightest point, the black sets the darkest point. To explain the whites and black sliders quickly, we're gonna go over here where it says Effect Controls. We're gonna expand this a little bit and select Lumetri Scopes. Now yours might not look like this, so what you wanna do is right click, go to Waveform Type, and you have to have Luma selected. I'm gonna expand this a bit more just to showcase. This might look confusing at first. The best way to explain it would be this. The waveform monitor shows the brightness of every pixel in your frame, and it looks like a graph. The bottom of the graph is 0, which is the pure black, and the top is 100, which is pure white. Everything in between is a shade of gray or a mid-tone. The rule you have to follow, you have to make sure nothing goes below 0 and nothing goes above 100. If your signal clips below 0, those shadows will be crushed, which means you've lost all detail in the dark areas and you can't get it back. If it goes above 100, your highlights are blown out. It's the same problem, just in the bright areas. Think of it like a speed limit. You can drive anywhere between 0 and 100, but the moment you go outside of those boundaries, you're losing information permanently. So as you make adjustments in the lumetri color, you can keep one eye on the waveform, and for example, let's pull our blacks down. As you can see, this is not good, so we have to pull them up. Let's set it to maybe 2.9, this will be okay. And then we have to do the same thing with the whites. If we go down, it's gonna go below 100, and this is what we want, so let's set it at minus 12.5. As long as the signal stays between those boundaries, you are safe. We can close the basic correction for now, and let's open up the curves panel. This is a more precise way to control tones than the basic correction sliders. The diagonal line will represent your image. So the left side is shadows and the right side is highlights, and the middle is the mid-tones. We can click anywhere on the line to add a point. I'm gonna add it in the middle. If we pull it up, we will brighten our highlights, but we have to follow the graph. So if I do that, you will see our highlights will go up. But we have to make sure not to go over the 100 line. So for example, you can see this is already way too much. I'm gonna set it to maybe... I'm gonna set it like this. Of course, if I pull it down, we will deepen our shadows. You can see the graph falls again. In order to set it back to default, you just have to double click in the square and it goes back to default. We can close the curves tab now, and the last thing I want to show you is the color wheels and match. Of course, you can see there's also HSL secondary and vignette, and also we have the creative tab, but this is something that you'll learn by yourself later on. So let's select the color wheels and match. If we have two clips that look different from each other, different cameras, different lighting, different colors, we can use color match. First, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the comparison view, and this little new window opens up. Let's drag this down to the left so it doesn't bother us. And as you can see, we have a reference clip on the left and we have the current clip on the right. When I move my playhead, you can see the current clip moves. And when we move the reference slider will move. So what I want to do, since this is very green, I want to apply the same color on the left clip to the right clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it like this. And I'm gonna click Apply Match. Since this is an AI-powered tool, it's not always gonna turn out great. If you know what you're doing, you can manually adjust the midtones, the shadows, and the highlights. But for now, let's see what it looks like. So this is with the color match. This is without the color match. Unfortunately, there is no quick solution to color matching. This is something you will have to learn, and Premiere Pro might not be the best program for that. That's why many people use DaVinci Resolve, since it has better coloring options. Like I said, it's not always perfect, but it will get you most of the way there in just one click. The rest is up to you. For now, let's close the comparison view, and let's remove the lumetri color effect from this clip. Last thing I want to show you is the adjustment layer, which we have covered in one of the previous lessons. If you want the same color grade on multiple clips, don't apply lumetri color to each one individually. You will create an adjustment layer. You will drag it in your V2 track and lengthen it so it covers both of the clips. You're gonna select your adjustment layer. Let's do something extreme. Let's set the temperature to 80. As you can see, it's applied here and it's applied here. So this is with the basic correction and this is without the basic correction. We are now on lesson 8. This is the final lesson before exporting our video. And here we're gonna be covering how to add text and graphics to your video. Adding text is straightforward. You have to press T for the type tool and you click anywhere on the program monitor and start typing. When I left click, Premiere Pro will automatically put a text clip on V2 above my footage, and I'll move it to fit the first clip. And since we do have Japanese clips, I'm just gonna write Japan. To style our text, we can click on Essential Graphics here, or Workspaces, Captions and Graphics. I'm gonna go here. Here we can change the font. It's here. We can change the size. We can change the boldness, regular bold, all these other features that you have in Microsoft Word. Here you can change the appearance, so the color, the stroke, background shadow. For now, I'm going to change my font to Helvetica Bold. I'm gonna center it, align center horizontally, align center vertically, or you could go here to the selection tool and you can move your text wherever you want. If you hold Control, it's gonna lock on the Y or the X axis. And see, this is now centered. But first, let's increase the font size to, let's say, 160, or we can drag the slider so it fits. Let's make it 188. Let's center it again. But I want my text to have a red stroke, so I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna select the color box. I'm gonna pick red. I'm gonna increase the stroke to 20. And I'm gonna remove the fill. So now my text looks like this. This looks okay, but it doesn't really fit. The red doesn't really stand out. Let's try white again. Alright, this is much better. To stylize it, you really have a million options. Again, like I said in the previous 7 lessons, you can choose any font. There's hundreds of fonts. You can even import your own fonts. For now, I want it to be like this. I want my text to fade in and fade out. We can, of course, go to the text clip, press right click, apply default transitions to the back and to the front of the video, but there is a more precise way, and that's with the opacity. So I want my text to start fading in as soon as this transition ends. So like this. I'm gonna go to the effect controls, pull down this little arrow, drop this down, and put the first keyframe on opacity, but I'm gonna put it at 0. I'm gonna move my clip, let's say, half a second, and I'm gonna put my opacity to 100. Of course, mandatory ease in, ease out. So now when we play it, let's adjust it just a bit more, like this. And now let's fade it out. We do the same thing. We have to put the third keyframe on 100%. And we'll make the last keyframe at the end of the clip, so here. And we're gonna put it to 0%. Again, ease in, ease out. Let's see what it looks like now. This is the same keyframe logic we used for the zoom in and zoom out effect, because keyframes work identically for every parameter in Premiere Pro. If you want more polished animated titles, you can look at the motion graphics templates. Go over to the Essential Graphics panel, click Browse, and here you'll see some templates. Most of them I have pre-installed, and you can find the templates on Mixkit, Motion Array, or any other alternative free site. Most of mine I have found on YouTube. Those will be the files with the .mogrt extension. To install the template, you're gonna go down here, click on Install Motion Graphics Template. And you can see I have the smiles or the symbols and objects, which I already have downloaded, but I'm gonna show you anyway. You're gonna click on it, you're gonna click Open, and when we type it in, smiles, you can see this little alien. I'm gonna drag it to my clip. This is what you get inside of the motion graphics template. Every single one is different, but this one has emojis, so I can unselect the alien. I can go over here and pick the ghost. We can change the scale of it, so let's put it to 50-50. A nice little motion graphic ghost. For most projects, you will use a clean, simple text overlay with some added effects, but it's good to know that this option exists. I have now covered audio, color, and titles. Before we move to export, take some time to finish your sequence properly. What I want you to do is add some background music, adjust the levels properly, fade it in and fade it out. Record a short voiceover, even if it's just one sentence. If you don't have a microphone available, find a speech on the internet, download it, and mess around with it. Grade your clips using Lumetri Color and try to match the look across the sequence. Then add at least one title to your sequence. When it feels done, move on to the final lesson. And now we are ready for the final lesson, which will be exporting our video. Make sure your sequence is active in the timeline, and then either go to the top left and click export, or press Ctrl and M on your keyboard. First thing you're gonna do is you're gonna change your file name. I'm gonna name mine finished edit. Next up, you have to select your location. Mine is at the right place, so I'm not gonna change that. And then we have to pick the preset and the format. H.264 format is the most compatible video codec for web, so YouTube, Instagram. The preset I would use if you are exporting in 1080p is either the high quality 1080p HD, or click on it, go down here, more presets, and type in YouTube and choose the YouTube 1080p Full HD, or if you're recording in 4K, you can choose the 4K option. Either way, both are configured to YouTube's optimal specs. I'm gonna leave mine on high quality HD. Now we're gonna drop down the video tab. We're gonna click on more. We're gonna go down to bitrate settings, and here you will see the target bitrate and the bitrate encoding. Personally, I would use the VBR2 pass. Why? It analyzes the video twice and produces a better quality at the same file size. However, it's gonna take a bit longer. I always use it for my final exports. However, if you have a longer video, let's say half an hour or an hour, and you're editing on a slower laptop, then I recommend you stick with the one pass. In the bottom right, we can see the estimated file size. For a 5-minute 1080p video, you're typically looking at maybe 500 megabytes to 1.5 gigabytes. It all depends on your settings. If you're exporting a 1080p video, I would recommend sticking with the target bitrate of 20 megabits per second, because going over that gives you no additional benefits and is just going to increase your file size. The last thing we're gonna check is the audio tab. I would stick with the AAC audio format, and the bitrate, we won't change that, since it's gonna be a high enough quality for any platform. When we are ready, we're gonna go down here, and we're gonna press export. It might take a while since I put it on 2pass. Your video was exported successfully, and now we can find it in the file monitor. Here we go. It's here, the finished edit, and that pretty much concludes our tutorial. These 9 lessons cover everything you need to produce real, professional quality videos. From here, natural next steps would be motion graphics, advanced color grading and color wheels, and multi-camera editing. One last thing, as I said in the intro, this video was made as part of a college project on instructional design using the ADDIE model. Your feedback genuinely matters. There's an anonymous Google Forms survey linked in the description. It's gonna take you 2 or 3 minutes, no personal data, it's gonna be completely anonymous. I would really appreciate if you could do it. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions, and thanks for watching, see you in the next one.